What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Optimized Ecommerce Podcast. I'm Tanner Larsson, and today we have a repeat guest from the BGS team, Aleksandar Nikoloski. Now, Alex has been with us since basically the inception of our revenue optimization process and building that out into a team. When Matt and I first started, and we got to the point where he and I couldn't do it all ourselves, and we really needed to start expanding, Alex and James came on at basically the same time. Now, they will both argue that each one was the first one, but really they basically flew to the office at the same time and started with us. So they've basically been around from the very beginning. Alex is definitely one of our most senior and seasoned revenue optimization experts. He worked with our amplified partner stores and has been responsible for taking stores from, low six figures a month to high multi-millions a month, and does that on a regular basis with our partner stores. He also started out as a coaching student, which is really cool. That's how he actually found BGS. He joined our coaching program after buying a bunch of, guru products that really got him nowhere. And then he found us and he's like, oh, this is great. And then he learned that he liked working on stores more than he liked owning a store and running all the day-to-day aspects of that. So we were super excited for him to join the team, and he's done everything from revenue optimization through our amplified stores. He speaks on stage at our events. He teaches in our training programs and our business accelerator programs. Just a super integral part and well-rounded person within the revenue optimization and ecom space. And also, starting at the end of last year, he actually became my right-hand guy, and Alex and I worked together in like a rocket fuel integrator visionary capacity together on a daily basis. So super cool. Just giving you a little background to me, you may not have known, although I know you've heard his stuff before. And today we're actually going to go through the 3 things that you have to get right if you have any hope of optimizing and dialing in a product page effectively. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Alex, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tanner. Thank you for the intro as always. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It has, and it's going to be a better one as we keep going, right?
Yeah. So
let's go ahead and jump into this. So just to start us off, let me throw you into a question right off the bat, which is why the product page and what makes it so much more important really than a lot of the other pages?
So here's the deal. In what we do in the revenue optimization, we always say that we always start optimizing a page from the checkout backwards, because checkout is the closest to the money, right? And any potential improvements over there will mean the biggest gain, right? The second most important page is the cart page. But before people even get to the cart page and the checkout page, they first have to go to the product page, right? The product page is where the sale is made, right? And this is the page where prior to them adding a product to the cart, people are mostly browsers, right? They're not shoppers. But when they're on the product page and they click that add to cart button, they turn from being a browser to being a shopper, okay? And our goal with optimizing our product page is to turn as many browsers to shoppers as possible. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And this is also the page that 99% of the people send their paid traffic to.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the page that, while it's not the most important page in the site, all because it all kind of fits together, it is also the page that most people see, right? Yeah. Everybody's going to see that product page unless you send people to your category page or a home page. But the vast majority, I'd say 98% of traffic is sent to the product page.
Yeah. For most people in the ecom biz op space, at least.
Yep. So what really matters when it comes to optimizing that product page? Because we know everybody's going to see it, but what are the key elements? What are the key things that really matter when it comes to dialing that in?
Right. So when it comes to dialing in a product page, you'll see we can do, but the 2 or better yet 3 most important things are the product images, the copy, and the reviews. Those are, if you get those things right, you're on the right track.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about product images first. Okay. So the product image is obviously super important because when you're selling physical products, the image is the closest they're going to get to touching the product online. And that's super important to give them that, that feel. But a lot of people really get images wrong, and they use the supplier images, or they throw up a bunch of stuff. So let's talk about, how do you optimize an image and what makes a good image?
Right. So as you said, when it comes to e-commerce store, the reason that images are so crucial because people can't touch the product physically, they cannot try it and stuff like that. So especially this is important for wearables, like products that we wear, or technology products, gadgets and stuff, or pretty much any other product that is not basically a supplement or some skincare product, right? Yep. Don't get me wrong, images is super important for these products as well. Like they're also important for the supplements and for the shampoo or the toothpaste or whatever, but they're not nearly as important as products in the other industry because the way a supplement powder or a shampoo looks doesn't really matter as long as it does what it's marketed to do, right? As long as it does what it promises to do. And that's why for these types of products, we always recommend adding a nutrition label as part of the main image gallery. Just make sure that the mobile one is a separate one, but because what typically people do is put the same wide desktop version of the nutrition label on mobile, and it gets like squeezed in and nobody can read it. So it has to be a separate one for mobile.
Yep. So let's kind of go off on that a little bit, because there's there's usually two schools of thought, right? Like we talk about the supplement one where it's like, well, I have the front of the supplement bottle and then the back of the supplement bottle, right? And they can't read anything on it. So you make a web optimized version of your nutrition label for the back, and maybe another op for anything else, like instructions or anything else like that. So that's visible and big and everything else. Because again, think about like on a mobile device, guys. If you have to take the picture of the back of the supplement bottle and the ingredients are small on the bottle, then they're even smaller on the screen, and they're even smaller on your mobile device. So it's real hard to do. So definitely optimizing for that. And then, showing what the pills or the internal powders look like, things like that. But we always see, not just that, I was just talking about supplements because Alex was on a riff on that, but talking about other products in general. Talk about number of images, because that's a big problem as well. It's either too few or too many, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to the number, 3 to 5 images is at least 3 to 5 images, but there's more to it than just the number of images. And the main purpose of showing multiple images on a product page is to show different perspective of the product, because as I said earlier, people heavily rely on product images when shopping online. And oftentimes they check them before checking even any other product information, like the description or the reviews or stuff like that. I mean, I do this all the time. When I shop on Amazon, the first thing I go is scroll to the gallery. And if I like what I see, then I go and read the reviews and all of those things. So every image should give value to people. And what I mean by value is either a new perspective or a new angle of the product. For example, if your first product image is like sunglasses from the front, the second image could be a shot from the side, and that's a value because it's a new perspective that it didn't see before. So that's number one. Or number two, the product images can show additional information, like the nutrition label, for example, right? And when it comes to product images, it's not just the quantity, but it's the quality. So you need to have at least 3 different types of images on your product, okay? And the first type of images, so you have multiple images from this type, is having the product for every single relevant perspective, from every single angle, right? It's like the sunglasses from the front, from the side, from the back, maybe the frame, how it's angled and all of that stuff. That's all important information. The second type of product images that you want is images that highlight specific product features. Like if you sell jewelry, for example, you might have a close-up shot of the many details and those crystals and diamonds or whatnot. Or on an apparel store or any other store with fabrics, you can have a close-up shot of to see the detailed texture of the fabric, for example. That's the second type. And the third type is images that show the product in context, like next to other products, so you can clearly see the size and the scale of the product compared to other products. Like it's so many times I've ordered things online that seem much bigger on the picture, and then they turn out to be little small things because they didn't read the dimensions, right? So that's what you want to do.
Totally. And that applies, the scale perspective actually applies huge to buyer's remorse. Okay. I can give you a perfect example of this. There's a member of our business accelerator community, Ecom Insider, and he's been at our events. We know him really well. He's a great guy. It has a great product, which is, it's a nootropic, like brain supplement. And we critiqued his site for him during one of our calls, and we looked at it, and I had never seen the product until that point. It was when he was first launching it. And he had a tub of the product in a black tub on the screen right next to, that was the image. And it looked like a normal sized, supplement tub. Now, if you're in the workout space or whatever, you could think of like a pre-workout tub, right? It's that I don't know, quart size looking tub. And that's what you expected. Everything looks great. The sales copy was great. We told him how awesome everything looked and everything. And then he goes, cool. He goes like, would you like me to send you a sample? I'd love to see what you guys think of it. And he did. So he sent me one, he sent Matt one, and I got it in the mail, and I didn't even pay for it. And I was unhappy. Like, I felt like a bait and switch, because when I got it, it was like, I don't even know, like a few ounces sized can. And it definitely was not the representation of what I saw on the website. So basically, if you're on audio, think about seeing something the size of a grapefruit and then getting something the size of a kiwi, right? That's really the size difference from what was in my head. Now, it wasn't that he wasn't trying to do that. It was just the way he had zoomed in on the product and everything else. There was no perspective. Wasn't sitting next to a glass. Now, I talked to him about that on the next call, and I said, hey, look, and here's the thing. And I showed him, and I was like, this is a big deal. Like, my emotion was that I had been bait and switched and let down. And I'm like, man, what am I going to get 3 servings out of this product compared to, because that's what we're used to, right? We're used to stuff. And he goes, no. Our stuff is so pure, this, and this. And he gave me the whole explanation. He goes, your serving size is way smaller. You only need this. That's actually a full month's worth of serving, because there's no fillers or other stuff. And I was like, well, that's awesome. And I love it. But why doesn't your website convey that? And why doesn't your image also needs to be in perspective? So put it next to a glass, put it next to a plate or a spoon or something, or put it in someone's hand. And so that's a perspective one. So from a buyer's remorse standpoint. Now, I'm going to let Alex keep going in a second, but I wanted to give a couple more examples.
We have breath rocks too with that.
We did. Size of breath rocks, right? They thought it was big tubes, like, and they were actually small tubes. So another perspective, so Alex was talking about jewelry and using things in the context of, perspective, right? Now, one of the big mistakes in the jewelry market is let's say you're selling a pendant necklace, right? Well, you have a picture that's like a V part of the chain, and then the pendant hanging there, and you have a whole bunch of pictures of the pendant, but you don't have any pictures of the full chain, a close-up of what the chain looks like. Is it woven? Is it interlinked? How does it, look? And also another big one that people leave out is the clasp, a picture of the clasp. And then they want to see a picture of the whole thing. And then more importantly, they want to see how it looks around someone's neck, right?
Which is my next point, the lifestyle image, the next category.
Why don't you go ahead and jump into that one?
Yeah, so those 3 that we talked about, the different angles, the specific features, and the context pictures, those are the main 3 types that you want to have, but you also want to have lifestyle images too, just like Tanner said. So having that jewelry on a woman, and multiple, maybe 2 or 3 of those images too, if people need to see it from different angles. And the last but not least is the UGC, or user-generated content, which can be like a separate gallery altogether, or it can be just part of your review system as well. So it's really important to have all of these 5 images, because people judge your website based on the images you present them to. And if you have shitty images, then really people will perceive your products to be worse than they actually are. Not just your products, but your entire brand. That's called... They
won't even give your product page a chance.
Yeah, right? It's called halo effect in psychology. You can read more about it, but it's very crucial that these are on point.
Yep. Now on the images, I want to touch a little bit more on this before he gets into the nerdy aspect of size and resolution and all of that, because I'm definitely going to ask him about that because it's important. But let's go back to the images and the quantity of images and what some pitfalls that we see. So let's go back to the sunglass example. Let's say they're a pair of like beachcomber sunglasses, guys, right? So you've got these Ray-Ban style beachcomber sunglasses, and you have the picture of the sunglasses like on a white background, and then front on, and then you have a picture of the sunglasses next to a case, and then you have a picture of the sunglasses propped up on the case on a towel on the beach. And then you have a picture of the side of the sunglasses, the other side of the sunglasses, the back of the sunglasses, and then you have a picture of them on a guy's face facing the other way, on a guy's face looking down, on a different guy's face. 90% of those images are worthless, okay? Because they're just showing more of the same. They're not actually adding value. Now, the first three I talked about, picture on the white background, picture next to the case, picture of on the case on the beach, right? Pick one of those three and you get the same thing. So if you want to show the case, then have the picture with the case, and you can still get both effects. Show, hey, it comes with the case if it does. If it doesn't, that's bait and switch. And then the picture of the sunglasses, and then you want one from the side, the other side, things like that. The same thing happens in apparel. It's like 7 shots of the jacket on someone. And it's like, okay, well, what does it look like with the hood up? You don't even show me the hood. What does the back look like? What does the inside look like? Like this jacket has a fleece lining in it. I would want to know that, okay? It has a hood. I want to know what the hood looks like on. I want to know what it looks like from the back. I want to know what the sleeve looks like because it's a different material here than it is here.
Zipper.
The zipper. But I don't want to know about what it looks like, the same image 7 different times, or 7 different, like, look, this guy, this is a black guy, this is a white guy, this is a Hispanic guy. I just want to see it on a guy, any guy. I don't need it from 10 different guys, right? So you got to be careful that you don't just throw images out there. Now, the other pitfall I want to touch on before I let Alex go is using manufacturer supplied imagery in your photos, as your photos, okay? Especially, this is huge in the drop shipping space. Now, if you're a drop shipper and you go to AliExpress or Alibaba or whatever, you take the images from that manufacturer and then you use those images. Those images are crap, okay? 9 times out of 10. Plus, anybody else selling that same product is using those same images. Okay, now, if you are drop shipping, we're not huge fans of drop shipping, especially not in the China model. But if you are drop shipping, order some of the product yourself and take pictures of it. And use quality images yourself. You'll actually be able to sell it for a higher price and distinguish yourself from the competition.
Yeah.
The last example I'll give you, because I could talk all day on this and so can Alex, but this is a drop shipping example. Okay, this is again a student of ours for a while. They had a retail store for a while, and they sold a collapsible hammock, like a backpacking hammock that would fold down and stuff into a small little ditty bag. And they sold this hammock very successfully in their retail store, okay? And then they built their e-commerce store and joined our program, and we're getting better at that. And this was one of their best sellers. So like, this is going to crush it for us online. And they had a great product description. Everything else was good, but they weren't making any sales on it. And so we looked at their images when they had asked us to do a critique, and they show this hammock 6 different ways in the bag. Okay, not one image of the hammock actually out of the bag or hung up or someone in it or anything. It was just these different, and I said, why are you doing that? He said, oh, well, these are the supplier images, and the only image the supplier had for it was hanging in a warehouse, like in the factory. And he's like, there was like Chinese people behind it working and building things, and he goes, it wasn't in context, so we didn't use it. I'm like, if someone's buying the hammock, what do they care about? He's like, the hammock. So why aren't you showing it to them? I said, in the store, do you have it just in the bag? He said, no, we have one set up. So this is a common mistake, all right? So make sure you're actually showing the product that people want, right? Yep. All right, Alex, I rambled for a long time. This is your show. Let's get back to you and talking about images are important, but just as important, even more important, maybe not more important, but just as important is resolution and image size, right? So talk about that.
Yeah, so it's a pretty clear balance that has to be achieved over there. If the image is like low resolution and low quality, it's going to be pretty shitty and it's going to hurt your site credibility. However, on the other hand, if it's too high quality, it might hurt you as well, because high quality images typically go pretty heavy in size and they can basically make your site speed go through the roof, right? So here's the rule of thumb. You want to go in resolution as high as possible as you can, while still keeping your image size under 100 kilobytes, ideally image, under 70. Yeah, per image. Ideally under 70, but even if you're under 100, that's still acceptable. Anything above that, it will basically slow down your page tremendously. The way we do it is we stay up until 8 by 800 pixels, JPGs, or whatever image format works best for your store. But if you can go higher than that, go for it. I've seen sites that have images by like 12 by 1200 and they're still under 100 kilobytes. It all depends on the image type, the colors, how many colors the product has, and all of that stuff, which is totally different story. But if you can do that, go for it. Yep. Just make sure it's
and you'll have to play with it, guys. You'll have to just try it a couple times, because different strokes for different folks with different kinds of products. But just to reiterate, normally it's around 800 by 800 pixel size, under 100 kilobytes, or 70 if at all possible, right? But if you can get under 100 kilobytes and go larger than 800 by 800, go for it, right?
Yeah, because high resolution is better no matter what way you slice it, but just make sure the size doesn't get too big. And when it comes to image size, it's appropriate to talk about the zoom as well. And it's pretty tricky to do zoom right. We see it wrong all the time. The key with zoom is to enlarge the image enough, like make it big enough without covering the entire screen, because then it looks like it's completely different page if you cover the whole screen, and have a little X all the way in the top corner where nobody will see it, especially on a bigger monitor. And people in that case will hit the back button and get off the page completely and cause all kinds of issues. So ideally, typically hover zooms work better than click to zoom, like the zoom that opens the image in a little pop-up. And that's what I recommend you do. But the very important thing to know with hover zoom is that you need to add roughly 400 to 600 millisecond. That's 0.4 to 0.6 second delay. So you avoid the flickering effect for people just playing with their cursor across the images without intending to zoom over the image, right?
Especially if they're on mobile.
Yeah, especially on their mobile. Or a better solution to this is use combination of both, so click and hover. So basically, whenever a customer hovers over the image, the cursor turns into like a small, what's it called, a magnifying glass icon with a plus inside, and when they click on it, then it shows the hover zoom, right? And then if they click again, the zoom gets deactivated, so to speak. Movement Watches has that implemented nicely, actually, and they have a pretty decent gallery as well, so you can check them out and see what I mean.
So guys, listening to that, I mean, it was pretty standard, like, okay, I can understand that. And then all of a sudden Alex went super down the deep rabbit hole of like milliseconds on zoom and stuff like that. But that's why our amplified partner stores win, because we actually are optimizing at that level and we're tracking, and we actually, you may think, oh, that doesn't really matter that much. Well, if Alex is talking about it, I guarantee you it matters at a very big number revenue level, because we don't do things on stores that don't work. We test them, and if they don't work, we take them off. But he said those numbers because it's within that range that actually gives you a boost in your metrics. Okay, so it's a big deal.
It is. It seems like completely insignificant thing because, it's nothing, just the image will flicker. But all of those small annoyances add up on the shopping journey. And the more you have them add up, the less the likelihood that people will buy. So every friction point, that's what optimization is, removing every friction point, at least most friction points, as many as possible on the journey.
Awesome. Okay, so we went down the rabbit hole on images. Let's move over to the next one, which is the copy, right?
Yeah, so
let's talk about the product copy.
Product copy, what is it really? It's basically the any copy, the product descriptions on your product page in this case. It's basically selling in written form, the copy term, that's where it comes from. And I'm not going to talk about how to create a masterful copy because I'm not a copywriting expert. I know enough for us, but I'm not an expert. What I'm going to talk about here is optimizing your copy for readability, which is even more important in some cases, because even if you have the best written sales copy on the planet, if it's not optimized to be easily read by people, then nobody will read it and it won't make any difference, right? So when it comes to copy readability, the first and most important thing and the biggest mistake that I see is people using walls of text, like huge paragraphs, like 20 lines long that nobody basically reads. So what you want to do instead is break your copy in paragraphs that are no bigger than 3 to 5 lines, right? On desktop and on mobile. And side note there, on mobile, the breaking in paragraphs will be different because obviously the paragraphs will be a lot narrower than on desktop. So you got to have some custom coding there. But just make sure that you break it up. Otherwise, nobody will read it, okay? The second point when it comes to optimizing readability of your copy is using big enough font size. This is the second mistake I see. People constantly use very small font that nobody can read, right? So on all of your copy, not just on your product pages, but all your copy on your website should have at least 16 points or 18, depending on the font family. You got to test it out yourself, but at least 16 pixels. And this is even more crucial, by the way, for older demographic of 40-year plus, which is something you can check in your Google Analytics, because the readability decreases, right? The older people get, it's much harder to read smaller font. We all know that. So we've literally increased conversions on pages just by increasing the font size and nothing else. So it's really, really important, okay? The third thing that's very important about readability of copy is fancy fonts. So it's probably even more hurtful than the other two, because even if you have a wall of text and the font size is pretty small, a stubborn enough person can read it if they try hard enough, but nobody can read fancy fonts. So avoid any like those handwritten looking fonts or anything that's unusual and you don't see in your typical blog or a magazine, and stick only to fonts that are most common, right? Like Arial, like Helvetica, Georgia, and stuff like that, okay? The next thing is to stick only to one font style and one color, right? This is also very important because it's all about consistency. If you have multiple font styles all over the place, it's just extra cognitive load and stuff that people have to process, and obviously it's like a friction. And then the multiple colors just hurt the visual hierarchy of your site. It will make things pop out that should not pop out on your website. And I recommend you stick only to a single font size and font style, and single color, but no more than two max. If you need to highlight some things on the copy, that's fine, okay? Which leads me to the next thing: never center align product copy. What do I mean by that? Don't focus it all in the center. It should actually be left aligned. All of your copy should be starting on the left to the right. And only use center align for headlines and subheadlines if you must, but for nothing else, because it's very terrible under readability. And then last but not least is to optimize your copy for skimmers. Here's the deal: people don't read, okay? People skim. Most people don't read. I mean, I'm the analytical type, you know me, Tanner. I'll read every single word on the page.
Totally. But not everybody else.
Yeah, most people don't read hot and copy. So you got to make sure that you optimize it for skimmers. And the way you do that is, as I said earlier, you break it into 3 to 4 paragraphs, and any half decent copy should have at least a couple of paragraphs. What you don't want to do is have multiple paragraphs without a break. So what you want to do is on every 2 paragraphs, you want to have a subheadline. It's like a short sentence that will basically explain what those 2 paragraphs below are about. And it should be to such a point that even if people don't read the 2 paragraphs, they will still get the gist of what they say just by reading the subheadline. I hope that makes sense.
Totally. No,
Yeah, so those are the couple of important things when it comes to copy readability. If you do these, you're golden.
So guys, on that, Alex was talking just now, and he was asking, does it make sense on the copy, or the body copy versus the subheadlines or the headlines? There's actually there's one story being told through the copy, but the subheadlines should tell the entire story at a high 30,000 foot view. And then the body copy is there for people who, when a subheadline catches their attention, they can read the copy underneath it, the body copy, and get the details about what that subheadline just said, right? So the subheadlines are designed for the skimmers and the idea is that it tells the entire story. And then when you're at the end of that story, it's a time to buy. But as they go through that story, reading by subheads, which is how people what's going to catch their eye first, they go, oh, that applies to me. I want to read about that. Or that one doesn't. I'm going to skip it. And that's why the structure of the copy is so important.
Yes.
Cool. So when we're at that, now the next thing is reviews, right? That was the third thing you said. So talk to us about reviews. Well, I mean, everybody goes to Amazon, but the first thing we do is read reviews, right? That's what Amazon's trained us to do. So let's talk about the importance in traditional ecom.
Yeah, so they're very important. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't read reviews, at least personally. I always read them. And oftentimes, and not always, whenever I'm searching products on Amazon, for example, I would not click on a product unless it has above four stars, right? So that's a very important thing for me. It's very important to have the reviews. You first have to curate them, right? So you need to ask people for reviews. Every single person that buys from you should have an automatic review request going out to them. All of Shopify's apps do that, actually. And the key with that is, though, to keep that flow simple and not ask for too much information. Just their name and their state and country, that's more than enough, right? If you try to ask for gender and age and all of that stuff, not that many people will give you reviews, because it's just like with optimizing a checkout form. The more information you ask from people, the lower the completion rate is going to be. So keep it simple when it comes to curating them. The second point when it comes to reviews is you want to have the stars, those 5 stars, right below your product titles, because that builds trust and credibility. And those stars should be like a link that links right below to the product, to the reviews widget at the bottom. And it should be like a smooth auto scroll when people click on it, instead of like teleportation, because if they get teleported down there, they have no idea where they went. They might think
causes confusion.
Yeah, completely. It will throw them off. So the next piece when it comes to review is on that review widget at the bottom below the product description, you want to have search. So review specific search, review specific filters, and review specific sorting. We know how important filters are on a category page in the sorting, right? And the same thing applies to the reviews as well, because people want to feel in control, right? And they want to be able to find the feedback that applies to them. For example, if somebody's buying shoes, and they want to see how people feel about the size, they will type size and then review specific search, and the search will pull out only the reviews that have the size word in it, right? And they'll be able to make the decision there. And Jeff Bezos said this, and it's so important. Reviews are not there to make sales. They're not there to help make more sales. They're there to help people make a purchase decision, which is a very important thing. It's a very important difference. So you always want to give people all the necessary tools they need to find what they're looking for, basically. Otherwise, they will just bounce.
Yep. And guys, what we're talking about here is not the default Shopify review system that's built into most themes or offered by Shopify. We're not big fans of using apps, because most apps are not coded all that wonderfully, and they usually drag a store down and slow it down. But one of the few cases where we do highly recommend using an app is for the review functionality. And in that case, we use a variety of different ones depending on the store, because they have different features. But we use Yotpo, Looks, Judge Me, and stamped, right?
Stamped is definitely my favorite because it does everything that we were talking about here, and it doesn't break the bank. It's really cool.
Yeah.
That's stamp.io, by the way. So the next thing when it comes to the reviews is the rating distribution chart, Tanner, that little summary above. That's basically like a quantifiable summary of all of the reviews. And if you don't have this on your site, people will just make a false judgment on what the overall rating of your product is based on the first couple of reviews. So if all of the top reviews are positive and you don't have the summary at the top, people will think that they're fake. And on the other hand, if all of them are negative, that will just hurt your product and it will hurt the sales because they will assume that the overall rating of the product is negative, right? But when you have this little summary, they can see, oh, these first might be negative, but I can see the overall rating is 4.7 or whatever. And the main thing is that each star on this rating chart should be clickable so that people can filter by the rating as well. And we see this on many of our sites. I'm going to talk about this in a minute too, but people that sort the reviews by rating, they typically convert the highest because they're looking for specific feedback. And this also increases the trust and authenticity of your reviews overall. So you definitely want to have it, but don't put it on products that have less than 10 reviews. You can just have your developer code a simple script that automatically hides that rating summary when the number of reviews is below 10 on that product. And then once it goes over 10, then it automatically shows up. And that's about the rating distribution chart. Do you have anything to add there, Tanner?
No, just if you're curious as to what that looks like and you're on Audible or not Audible, Spotify or iTunes or one of the other podcast ones, you're not watching this on YouTube and you're kind of not clear on what this is, just go look at Amazon reviews. They've actually done a phenomenal job and they do test this kind of stuff. You can't copy Amazon most of the time because what works in their ecosystem does not work elsewhere, but everything Alex just laid out, you can find on their review functionality. And it does work incredibly well. And like we said, we use apps to help. It's not like you have to custom code all this stuff. It's just a matter of setting it up and then curating it.
Yeah. Also, Taft Clothing, I believe, had a pretty decent everything that I talk about here. TaftClothing.com that has all of these elements done right on the reviews widget. So another very important thing is that we had this conversation with one of our partners, Tanner, you know who it is, pushing both positive and negative reviews. And this is super important for one simple reason. Everybody knows that no product on the planet is perfect and no company is perfect. And if you don't, let me put it this way, certain level of negativity is expected, right? It's not about whether you have or not negative reviews. It's about how you handle them. That's the key that people want to see. It's okay to have 1-star reviews, but people want to see how you handle and address those reviews right on the spot. And this gives you the ability to actually build trust with your customers by showing everybody, hey, this person wasn't happy, but we made them happy by sending them a replacement product or whatever it might be. But if you try to avoid it, you will literally hurt your trust. If all of your reviews are 5 stars, that hurts you a lot. And the bigger the difference, like the ratio between how many negative versus positive reviews you have, the more that it will hurt your site, okay? By the way, when I say positive, I mean 4 and 5 stars, and negative 1, 2, or 3-star reviews. So it's very important to push those as well, because let's be real, everybody knows that you're going to have negative reviews, whether it was somebody that didn't receive their package or it was a product flaw. Like it happens. It's pure statistics. Some products will be defective, or maybe it was just a customer that was a jerk. It doesn't matter. Somebody will post that, so people want to see that on your website. Absolutely. And by the way, on the sites that we do this, right, where we push the negative reviews and we address those negative reviews, people that sort the reviews by the 1 star and 2 star, they convert the highest typically, because they see, there's negative reviews, but these people handled it well, and they won't leave me hanging if something happens to me in the future. So that's the key.
And think about it, guys. When you go to Amazon or whatever site you do, you look for negative reviews. You don't want to read the happy ones. You want to read the bad ones to see is the bad something that I can overcome? Is it a deal breaker for me, basically, right? And that's the whole point. And if you handle it by handle it, we mean actually responding publicly to the review in the review app, and having that response be public, and you taking the right customer-centric approach to it. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, problem's going to happen. But look, yeah, this guy's product was broken when it arrived, must have broken shipment, but they shipped him a new one and they took care of him, and those kind of things.
By the way, little note there when addressing those reviews, I see business owners do this, like address the reviews, but they just say, oh, we're sorry, email us at support and we'll take care of you. But you want to go one step further and tell them how you're going to take care of the issue. Oh, we're sorry that your thing was defective. We're going to send you a new replacement order or whatever it might be. So that's that for the negative reviews. 1 or 2 more things. You also want to hide the widget on products that have no reviews. And this is called negative social proof, because nobody wants to be the first one to try out a product. So if your product has 0 reviews, just have a developer write a little script to hide it until you start having a couple of reviews, and then it will automatically show up. And also don't hide the reviews widget behind the product tab. Okay. You can still have it behind a tab, but that's complementary. The main product widget should always be at the bottom below the product description. And as I said earlier, Stem.io does all of these things really well. So definitely check that one out.
And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I'm not crying because of what Alex said. Like, I think my contact just folded up in my eye, and it's hurting. But I'm definitely not crying at Alex's topic, because it's actually quite interesting.
Got emotional.
I got real emotional, but it definitely looks like it on the screen. All right, keep going.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's all I have to cover about the reviews.
Okay, so go ahead.
One thing we didn't talk about earlier is that we missed, actually, I just thought about it, is when it comes to the copy, is about presenting the right information at the right time, right?
Correct. Yeah.
How many times, Tanner, you've been, or I've been on Amazon, and I got the images, I like the reviews, and then I'm trying to see what are the dimensions of this thing, and there's no information on it, and I just bounce, right? Because it's a very critical piece of information. So when it comes to presenting information at the right time, first, you got to have all the information necessary that people will need to make a purchase decision. But also it needs to be in context, right? It should show up whenever they have the certain specific question in their mind. For example, let's talk size chart on a apparel company, right? So many business owners, they have the size chart, but it's all the way at the bottom of the product page, or even worse, on a separate page somewhere on the website, right? But where it should be is in context with the size, right? Where do people have questions about the size when they're choosing their size of the product, right? For example, the size of the shirt. So that's why what you want to do is next to the size selector, have a little link that says size chart. And when they click it, it opens a little pop-up with the size chart on it. And that's where you want to put it. That's what I mean, presenting it at the right time. Or it could be a nutrition label in the same manner. When do people think about it? Right before, like right when they start reading the product description. So you want to have it at the top of the product description, or as a separate tab on the product description. Or what worked well on our supplement sites is, just like you did the size chart earlier, just have nutrition label link right next to the add to cart button that opens the nutrition label in a pop-up. So, and also having the nutrition label as an image, like we said earlier. So that's very important as well. Little thing that I forgot to mention.
Awesome. No, that was a good ad. All right, guys, this was great. Alex, thank you so much. Everybody, right now, what I need you to do is make sure you are subscribed to this podcast. Every week, we're releasing new episodes with our team members and special guests, where we're really deep diving into the world of optimizing your store. So if you need links, if you're on iTunes, obviously just click subscribe. If you're on YouTube, which I highly recommend you subscribe to both iTunes and YouTube or Stitcher, because we have a video podcast as well. But if you need the links, go to buildgrowscale.com/podcast. You can get links to all the platforms you can listen or watch, as well as the show notes and all the other cool stuff that we have for you with this podcast. So buildgrowscale.com/podcast. And finally, leave us a review or a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you'd like to see us cover, and we'll build special episodes around what you guys are asking for. All right. With that, guys, we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you and have a great day. See ya.